what's up, everybody? It's your bookie's favorite podcast, a.k.a. the Chad and Cheese Podcast. I'm your co-host, Joel Cheeseman, joined as always, the edge to my Bono, Chad Sowash, and we are recording live from the Fuel 50 booth at HR Tech in Las Vegas. And we are excited to welcome Doug Shagham, Head of People, Data, and Insights at Johnson & Johnson. Doug, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. It's a privilege to be here.
Did you know that your last name, Shagam, autocorrects to Shazam?
You know what? I did, but most people remember me because of Austin Powers, right? And it's Shagam,
wow.
baby.
Shagam,
yeah.
That's a good call. That's a very
If
good
only your
call.
parents knew that one day their last name would default to Shazam. So anyway, a lot of our listeners don't know you, I'm guessing. Give us a quick Twitter bio about what makes Doug tick.
Yeah. So, true story. Truly on Twitter, right? You can see that I am a guy who really is a drummer by training, right? I started out my career at Juilliard, and then my parents said, all right, so how are you going to actually live? Like, pay for your family, pay expenses, do things. So I'm like, oh, all right.
Did you say, have you not know like Keith Moon, John
I
Bonham?
pointed out, there's some pretty cool drummers who have been very successful. And you're like, no, we're going to give you 4 choices. They start with letters, A, B, C, or D. You could be an attorney. You could be a banker, investment type, preferably. C, CPA, or doctor or dentist. So, admittedly, I tried for the whole doctor thing until I realized that you actually need a higher GPA than a BAC to get into one of these medical schools things, right?
Yeah.
So I said, all right, that's not going to work. So spent an extra year, degree in political science, and realized, well, I could work a Blockbuster back then.
Yep.
Not exactly going to provide, stable, good idea, but isn't going to work.
Great access to films. I mean,
Tons, and watch plenty. Trust me. Fortunately, went to school across the border, and I went to school in Buffalo, right across Niagara Falls, so easy access to.
I need to interject that he went to a MAC school. I attended Ball State, so little brothers in arms here for the MAC. Little shout out to the MAC. Yeah,
love
go ahead, keep going.
the Mac.
So ended up getting my MBA, and fortunately I had a little help from a friend, namely a family member who was a chief medical officer at GE. So got into the financial
Again, proving
management.
it's not what you know, it's who you know.
It's always about who you know. Got into GE and their FMP program, and realized after the 2 years of training, very nice to meet Jack Welch, brilliant man, learned a whole lot, but also realized I am not a finance dude.
Yeah.
So I started there, and a lot of my learning and lessons came from that, and progressed into analytics, people analytics, and love the fact that work that I and my team does can actually make an impact on people where they spend a lot of their life.
So you're a blast at parties. You went from aspirant drummer, aspiring drummer, to data guy.
Yeah, and I'm no 10,000 Malcolm Gladwell hours, dude. I'm the guy who, no joke, saw in the 6th grade some dude playing drums, and I'm like, wow, he's got a lot of people watching him. I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Went into training band the next day, met my guidance counselor, signed up, and he's like, I probably can't say this, shit, he's good. So turned out I went through some lessons, figured out that I had this thing called relative perfect pitch. I can play anything on a piano if I've heard it. And honest,
really
great bar trick, especially after a couple bourbons. Really good.
Well, we love going down this musical party avenue, but let's talk about your role at J&J and what you're doing that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the head of People, Data, and Insights, which really sounds exciting. It's more people analytics, really, if I break it down into 2 words, right? And, from the start of just gathering, what are the right data elements to collect, the right variables? What are the questions that people really want to know answers to what actions will they take from that, and making sure that it's democratized. We don't want to keep data in jail, right? I've always said most of these core systems that exist, they're powerful, they're huge, but how many people can really access them and understand them, right? And when we talk about an employee's life cycle, that's what we care about, right? Understanding what are those moments where we can access data to really help improve impact and drive outcomes.
Well, and then actually tell the story around that data.
Yeah.
Because data doesn't tell its own story, right? You've got to tell that story.
So true, right? Data's unemotional, and nobody wants to read pivot charts for a living, right? Nobody.
Some
does.
people do, but they're boring as hell.
Well, yeah, I mean, come on.
They don't want to be
Seriously?
drummers.
I mean,
they don't want to be drummers.
Who wants to do that, right? I mean, come on. So you've got to have people who are great storytellers, who can influence and make decisions and bring it to life, right? It's like, reading a book is great. It's important. You need to do it. But when you have somebody who can tell the story of the book, now that's powerful, right? And that's what we want to create, a culture. And we want to make sure that not just the HR people who are great do that. We want business leaders. These are people who manage P&Ls. We want them to do the same, and they're very willing to do the same with human capital data. We want people who are, even our employees, to know, well, how many people do we have in the company? Are we hiring more people? Tell us about how many more we've made. So basic stuff like that is so important to us. And when we think about talent acquisition, that's our big play right now. For the next 3 years, this is our big focus area, and bringing not the old school way of thinking about TA, but understanding, right? People have skills, people have experiences, people have all these different attributes that we want to bring at this front, not at the back, to the table for our recruiters, our hiring managers, to help make better, more informed decisions. Because that's where the gold is. I mean, heck, I'm sure ChatGPT could write a great resume for me, right? No question about it. But I'm old school, right? And I don't want to just take a job description and have ChatGPT do it. I want to understand what's reality. I want to measure it. I want to do a side-by-side, right? My dream, I want maybe 2 monitors. I'm a little old. But 2 screens. I want to have one screen that shows my internals, one shows that my externals, and I want to be able to understand. Tell me, when I measure all these different pieces, who should I be selecting for, right? Because I got 578 people apply for one job that I had.
So because of scale, right? So back in the day when we were passing around paper resumes and applications and those types of things, we didn't have to deal with the scale that we deal with today, right? And now we've got the opportunity of new scale with AI. So you being able to scale, a lot of this can't happen just in one platform. So how many platforms are you trying to sew together to create this ability to tell that story that you're talking about?
How many cats are you herding?
If I told you we're close to triple digits, I'd probably be
God.
Of tech
Of
platforms?
tools?
of general HR platforms.
Okay.
TA is not up there. They're in the double digits, in fairness, right?
Totally.
But there's overlaps between different things, and we don't use them as probably as bestly as we should. And that's where we've got opportunities, right? So, part of why, we look to figure out what's next on our horizon is just for these reasons, right? It's because, there's some great companies out there who have outstanding things, but how does it all tie together? Because I don't want to use somebody who just does video recruiting to have to go to somebody else who just does skills assessment, to somebody else who just does this, or somebody else who does that, which is probably how many companies have done it, and admittedly how we have too. Can I find somebody who can integrate these things, bring it together, and give me that whole experience in one, so that it's easy, it's simple, and we place the candidate at the center. And that's what matters most to us.
Are there any of those tools that are invaluable that you couldn't live without. And is there any effort at J&J to build your own tools in terms of the data that you're collecting and how you're analyzing it?
I always think there's opportunities to explore our build strategy. But what I've learned across 25 years of experience is building is hard unless you're a tech firm. If you're a tech firm, you can probably build all the great stuff. But it's so much easier when you find people who are experts in their craft at knowing this thing.
Yep.
And there's always trade-offs, right? Like they may not be perfect at that, but they're experts at that,
Yep.
right? So when you can figure those things out and help push them, and admittedly, right, we're 150,000 employees. We've got close to 100,000 contractors, 70,000 contractors, right? Grows. Those are the areas where we say, all right, how do we do this better? Why does it take 12 steps sometimes to get somebody from A to Z? Why can't we do that in 4? Right? I mean, unless you're, some super top executive where, of course, there's going to be more interviews. Of course, there's going to be more. But for most of our people, you don't need 12 steps or some magic number.
Just to be clear, you're dealing with data on the front end with incoming candidates as well as the current employees, upskilling opportunities, where should people be moving. So you're using tools on both sides of the fence. What kind of stories are you telling with the data? And specifically, I think data helps talent, HR, tell a story about profitability in the organization. Are you doing that at J&J and how?
Yeah, so something we're super proud of is launching, we call J&J Learn. And a lot of it is based on some of the work we've done in partnership with you folks as well, right? And the fact is, we're already seeing those returns, right? We think about the fact that now we don't have separate training that takes place within our farm group, within our med tech group. It's all under the umbrella now of J&J Learn. This big, and I love it because I think about what I experienced at GE at Crotonville, right? Where you bring people together, whether they're in aircraft engines or in capital. Sure, there's some specialized groups that existed back when I started years and years and years ago, but most of the training really happens right there at the center at J&J Learn in our specialized campus in Orlando. And what I love about the fact is we not only have cost benefit from bringing all that together, but more importantly, we're seeing people already who are taking classes, who are not only gaining skills, but working with others that they've never worked with before. And that cross-pollination, plus the benefit of going through the classes, completing them, seeing how their talent velocity, whether lateral moves, promotions are occurring. And this is early stages, right? We're just beginning. 1 year in. Imagine what this is going to look like 3 years in. We think about retention. We think about that talent velocity score. We think about return on investment, what it costs us and what we get back later on. These are huge opportunities for us. And it's certainly one of our big rocks, if you could use that phrase, but it's something we're very proud of. Sandra Humbles is our Chief Learning Officer.
Dig into the ROI part of your statement. What does that look like at J&J? Who are you sharing that with? What does it look like?
Well, I can tell you our CFO is certainly interested in something like that, right? And
I fear that's unique in not too many companies. So that's a good problem to have.
I mean, these are things that really matter to us, and we want. I remember back when we started to do some pilots, and people were asking questions like, "Wow, you can infer skills. That's pretty cool, right? Pretty cool, except." For the people on the factory floors in our supply chain organization at the time, where they don't have equipment or laptops to put in what skills they have and how we could measure them and all this stuff through inference. So we had to come up with other strategies. There's lots of ways to measure skills, lots of ways to go through content, but how do we make sure it's good and equitable for everyone? And what we cared about was, are we seeing employees getting value out of this, right? It wasn't just the dollars and the cents at first. It was really about the employee experience. Are they growing? Do they have aspirations? Are we helping them to get to their aspirations? And you got to have a hook, right? It can't just be, well, we're going to save the company money. It's got to be about, well, what can, the old tune into the radio station WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? And that's really what helped us get started, right? Yeah. Don't you want to grow? We posted, right? Here's what we're playing for, right? And when you post that, and then you start realizing, well, oh, I have some of these, but not all of these. I better start focusing on some of these. They matter to the company. We're not saying we're going to throw you out or kick you out or not keep you, but what we are saying is you should know what we're playing for. And a lot of people got on that bandwagon real quickly.
Yeah.
I bet so.
You are listed as a top 10 influencer via CIO Look.
10.
I'm not a reader of the publication, but how do you get to be a top 10 influencer for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps?
Well, I would always say this. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. It's certainly something that I'm honored and humbled by. So let me start there. And what I would say is this. You've got to have learning agility. If you think that what you learn now and what you know now is something that is always there, you better realize that it's not.
Amen. Amen.
Well, Doug, thanks for sitting down with us here at the Fuel 50 booth at HR Tech. For anyone who wants to connect with you or learn more, where would you send them?
Hit me up on LinkedIn.
Easy. That is Doug Shagham, if you're in autocorrect land, a.k.a. Shagam. He is the head of People, Data, and Insights at Johnson & Johnson. Chad, that's another one in the can. We out.